Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the World Championships Time Trial Preview. We had the Europeans last weekend, or whenever it was. We had the World to just finish and we're straight into the World Championships. But we're going to do them both a men and women's preview. I believe Benji might even do a mixed relay preview. He's prepared extensively for that. He knows everything about the mixed relay, his favorite discipline. This show is brought to you, as always, by show partner Joint Cycling. We have a special announcement regarding Joint Cycling today, which is very exciting, so stay tuned for that. But where are you, Benji? Have you got any news to report? You recovered from Turkey? You got scammed again?
From Turkey. Well, technically, I didn't get scammed. So I brought Joe, my editor, to Turkey with me so he could edit videos on the go while I was recording stuff in Turkey. And on the second last night, Mr. Joe decided to take a cab from the hotel to the center of Istanbul, and a 30-minute ride ended up being a 2-hour ride because the cab driver was like, first of all, he was starting to go upwards. The city is left. So that was already the first problem. So after half an hour, Joe's like, this seems not right. And the guy was like, we're going to go that way. We're going to take a ferry. We're going to have some tea, blah, 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 blah. That's not why you take a cab. And obviously, the more kilometers that are done, the more Joe has to pay in the cab. Now, eventually, Joe gets his Turkish friend, Mike, Turkish friend, Emre, on the phone, and they start talking to the driver. And the driver was like, I have to go this way because I can't go the other way because Besiktas is playing. Besiktas is playing, so everybody is going to the stadium there, so the road's a bit blocked. Now, Besiktas was playing, but in a completely different city in Turkey. So, so that was complete bullshit. Eventually, Joe ended up on a ferry to cross the Bosphorus from Asia to Europe. It's like he was literally being abducted by a cab driver. And that drive turned into a 2-hour drive instead of half an hour drive. So he ended up just returning back to the hotel just after.
Okay. So, what I'm understanding is that Benji turned into Liam Neeson and saved Joe.
That's
you
basically
should have added that in the story, and then no one could disagree with you, Benji. But got the TT.
But I was waiting for you to give me the credit, you know?
Yeah, he wouldn't do that himself. Is there a Taken 3?
Yes.
Will I stop at 2? Taken 3?
Yeah.
Anyway, Zurich. We're going to the World Championships, the Bankers Deluxe, and we have the time trial this weekend. Both the men and women's is on the Sunday. I might even have a little look at the U23 TT as well, because I'm, I guess, enjoying the U23 racing at the moment. But starting with the men's TT, we have a long one from Zurich to Zurich. They start in the north of Zurich, and then they go around like a hill zone on the south of some sort of lake, and then they come down over a couple of hills and then head back into the main part of Zurich, just north of the Zurichsee, which is another lake. It is flat for the first 21.5 Ks. We have a TT, intermediate time check on the Fallendenstrasse at 12.5 Ks in. We then have those climbs I mentioned, which I think are very, very important in this middle zone. It's like 700 meters, 5%. Doesn't even look like much. There's false slide uphill that's uncategorized. It says it's 2.5 Ks at 5%. There's a ramp at 600 meters, 8.5%. A short descent, another kicker. I don't know why both climbs are separately categorized, but from my perspective, it's like 2 Ks of climbing again, or a K of climbing again at maybe 5%. Then some more punches. Then they go down onto the shores of the lake, where it is pretty flat, where they have the third intermediate time check on the Seestrasse before finishing in Zurich, 46 kilometers. It's going to take them over 50 minutes, maybe even 55 minutes. So it's a long TT. It's a balanced TT, Benj. I like these routes where still anyone can win.
I think so as well. And to be honest, over the last couple of years, whenever we talk about World Championships, I think last year was pretty long as well. I think 47 kilometers. But before that, it was 37. Then it was 43. Harrogate was probably the longest I can remember, 54 kilometers. And I kind of like these long time trials. I do like the they change every now and then, sometimes a bit hillier, sometimes a bit flatter, etc. to cover the more versatile tram trellis, to cover the more extreme pure tram trellis. So I like it switching every now and then. I like the route this time around as well, because it gives the option to get a gap on the flat for the pure tram trellis, but there's also a bit of climbing involved in the middle, like you mentioned, that could impact them there and could be a benefit for the more versatile tram trellis. But then again, maybe the top tram trellis we have right now are the ones that can do both. But talking about the riders that are here at this race, we've got Olympic champion ITT Remco Evenepoel. Honestly, looking at this parkour, he's good at flat. He's good at climbing. It's about, do you think he'd prefer an even harder parkour because then the delta between him and the others are bigger? Or would he then be scared that Roglic would come in?
I think this is perfect. I think this is perfect where the GC boys, the pure GC guys like Poggi and Roglic, it's not hard enough.
Yep.
And he can kill them on the flat sections, but it is hard. There is some punchy hills, which is not good for Tarling and Ganna as well. It doesn't seem so technical. There's a lot of long straights. It doesn't look like they really have to brake too much on the whole of the southern direction of this TT. Yeah. The first, I would say, 15, 20 Ks it's like a straight line. And then when they go north after they finish the hill zone, when they're on the lakes, on the Seestrasse, that is also straight line smash.
Really?
So, yeah.
The flat segments are the ones where there's hardly any braking. So that's ideal for the riders that are the real power givers like Tarling, like Ganna, but also, like in general, that's just the ideal scenario to not have to do the accelerations after every corner, to not be impacted by your technical skills in the corners, etc. So you've got the first 20 kilometers and the last 14-ish, no, maybe a bit more, 15-ish kilometers. Those two for me are just plain straight time trialing, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's. I think it's a good course. Yeah, it's a balanced course for everybody. If we look at the Olympic Games TT, just to remind you of those results, which also it was a shorter time trial. Remco beat Ganna by 15 seconds, Van Aert by 25, Tarling by 27. Let's meet in the middle and say that Tarling would have been on 15 seconds off Remco. So that means it's very, very tight between those three. Over 32.4 kilometers. That was not really hilly. That was very flat, actually. I had a few technical sections, was a little bit wet. And if we then go back and remind ourselves of the World Championships time trial last year, between also the three of them, they were all on the podium from memory. Ganna was only 12 seconds behind Remco on a 48K course, and Tarling was 48 seconds behind Remco, and that course was, I would say, quite similar. FirstCycling is refusing to load it, but from memory, it had a few punchy hills too.
When you look at the profile, you'd say flat, but there were a few climbs, but they weren't necessarily the gradients that we see on the parkour of this year. They did have that cobble climb into Sterling, if you remember, that we had last year, where we saw people struggle on the last few hundred meters on the parkour. But like you said, it's a length. But then again, we say Filippo Ganna was on 12 seconds last year. Yes, Ganna won a time trial at the Giro, but I do feel like he's taken a step backwards compared to last year. Is that weird to say?
No, it's definitely true. He lost the Tirreno TT to Ayuso. But then he won a Giro TT, lost the hilly one to Poggi, and I wouldn't say Pogačar was like. Yeah, like Pogačar's not Remco in the TT. He's way better than Jonas as an overall TT rider. But yeah, Ganna, but then in the Olympics he's on 15 seconds, but it's a flat course and he should be taking all the risks. So if he can't beat Remco there, does it get any better on the longer course? This is, again, it's really hard to predict these, and to remind you of the odds, Remco is the short favorite. This is very different to the Olympics, but Remco is the short favorite. He's $1.40. Tarling's $4, second favorite. Ganna's third favorite, $8. To be honest, I kind of agree with them, although I think Remco's a little bit short. Roglic is 19. Kung is 21, Affini's 34, McNulty's 41, Sheffield's 51, and that's about it actually. Like Almeida is 9th favourite at 150, so the market really is cornered by Remco, Tarling, and Ganna. There's no Pogačar, there's no Wout van Aert. I would say McNulty. I would take McNulty to beat Roglic, Kung, and Affini. Definitely Affini and Kung. If McNulty's in good shape, but in the end of the Vuelta he was not. It's a good course for him.
How do we rate the Affini European Championships victory? Because it's still not a 46-kilometer time trial, you know? Like,
no.
In the day we saw Affini as the prologue merchant. He's overcome that this year, I would argue to say, because that parkour was longer. That was kind of the Bissiger lengthened parkours, back when Bissiger was a good time trialist. Now, when it comes to the Zurich parkour, based on the past, I'd say this is too long for Affini.
Yeah, I think so, but he's in good shape after the Vuelta. But yeah, I would take someone like McNulty. McNulty last year in Worlds was good, and yeah, I think McNulty is actually a very good chance for a medal in this event. The hills, again, it's just advantage Remco, and if this is going to be tight between him and Tarling and Ganna, that hill zone really, really plays into his hands. Not that he's, if we looked at the Tour de France TT, which was quite similar, had a longer climb, the first TT, not the mountain one in Nice, I mean the first TT, he wasn't as good as Vingegaard and Pogačar on those hills, but he still should be quicker. Even if he goes the same speed as Ganna and Tarling, it's easier for him on the uphill. So,
but he should go faster on them. To be honest,
he should be trying to hold them. If he should be trying to hold them on the flat sections and then take his time in the hill zone. Yeah.
But if you don't look at the pacing strategies of the likes of Ganna and Tarling, obviously they benefit on the flat straight part. So the first 20 kilometers, last 15 kilometers, they benefit there by going hard. But how much do they keep that hill zone in mind then? Because they go completely full on the flat segments, then they might burn themselves on the climbing area. So they always have to ride that first flat segment with the hill zone in mind a little bit.
And Tarling's a bit one-paced, you know? He's like not as explosive as the other two guys. So they'll have to go, if they try and do it more polarized like Remco, which I don't think they will do, he's going to be doing 700 watts on those hills, which is not realistic probably. So, but then they do have the advantage that once they get up to speed and they're rolling and they can just carry that momentum, but then Remco is the arrow bullet. It's really hard to know. You also don't know, like, has someone had their training affected? Are they sick? How are they? What sort of shape are they in? You just have to assume that unless you hear otherwise, everything is going well for them. Speaking of going well, a big announcement from us. We now have a Lanterne Rouge plan for all of you on Join Cycling. We've been working with Join Cycling, especially this year, saying what's worked for us and what's worked for me with the plans on Join Cycling. So we decided to make a plan ourselves that you can get involved with on the Join Cycling app. I'm doing it at the moment as well. The reason I'm in this random airport hotel is I just came back from the Netherlands, and I'm going straight to Girona to do some training, which is, because I'm so excited about this plan, although the weather is kind of, there's also sea otter on, but Moritz crashed on the recon. I got to not crash. That's more important. He crashed in the recon of Gravel Worlds, which not good for him. Anyway, I digress. The Lanterne Rouge plan. It's about training, polarized, mixing up your weekly cycling routine with real workouts and enjoyable endurance rides, which enables you to combine getting better with the fun of riding your bike. This is what I've been doing all year, and what, after basically a 5-year hiatus, has got me back into consistently training on the bike, is basically one, I would call proper workout a week, threshold, bit of VO2 max, sprints, whatever, one proper workout a week, and then actually just doing some fun endurance rides. That's whether with your friends or just noodling around, cruising around. Stacking weeks and months of consistent riding together has been the key to improving myself over the long term. It avoids burnout, and I want to improve my fitness. I want to be healthy. I want to enjoy riding. I want to push myself occasionally, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. The Lanterne Rouge training plan, it mixes up your routine with these real workouts and the enjoyable endurance rides, as I said. So, if you want to check it out, and already, so many of you, even before we announced it, many of you had already started on the plan. I'm doing the plan as well, and I'll be keen to hear how your progress goes. I'll be updating you how my progress goes on the Join Cycling Lanterne Rouge plan. You can check it out through the link down below, and we're really happy to have a partner like Join Cycling as our show partner, who work with us, listen to you, the audience, what's worked for you, and also design custom training plans based on what they think and the data says our audience wants and would benefit from. Picks time, I think, Benji. We've discussed the route. It's balanced. There's hills. We don't know exactly everybody's shape, and everyone we do think. Do you agree that the market should be cornered between those three, or do you see a Rogla Olympics Tokyo possible?
I don't necessarily see that. I see Kung maybe getting a podium in clutch if something happens with the first three, if one of them has a bad day, or whether they have Tarling has a mechanical again or something. But also, if I go over every single rider, then if we take a look at Kung's last 2 weeks, he podiumed to European champs behind Affini, a race where he was the favorite going into it. He did win that last Vuelta TT, but let's be honest about it, the competition there was not great. Then when it comes to Tarling, we kind of haven't really seen him do time trials since the first one at the Vuelta, which was kind of disappointing, but that's a 12K TT. And before that, we're already at the Olympics, where he came fourth because of that mechanical. And then I look at Ghana, and I'm pretty sure he skipped something. I don't remember what, because of the tiredness after the Olympics or something. He skipped the race after the Olympics due to tiredness. I swear I saw a headline like that on the news at some point. So does that tiredness still impact him? That's a question there. His Renui Tour and little Deutschland Tour. He was horrible at Deutschland Tour. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot that. Yeah. Jesus.
Like, he's
was had a shocker
off the
season.
back. Well, he won that Giro TT, but outside of that, relative to his normal seasons, that was a shocker season. I agree with you on that. So my expectations for Ghana are not necessarily that high right now, and maybe that's just underrating him. Maybe he's been able to reboot and reset, and he's back in it. When it comes to Remco, I don't have the doubts when it comes to Remco. Yes, Tour of Britain, he didn't win that race, but he also played in like a very joker role of like, okay, let's try and get Alaphilippe this stage win. Let's try and get our boy Manier at this stage win, and not really going much for himself in that race to begin with. Before that, Olympic road race and ITT champion. And it's hard to know what happened in between that period and now, but I'd say he's probably going to be in form, but I am still surprised that everybody's so spread out when it comes to the betting odds before this race, because I don't think it's as clear as those odds presented to be.
You think Remco's a bit too short?
Well, I think he's a bit too short. I think everybody should be a bit closer in general. But I still think Remco's the favorite.
I think the Olympics also reflects that. Like, okay, I know Remco won, and he did. It did look like he never was in doubt. He was up at the first intermediate, but 15 seconds to what we think is not the best ever Ghana, maybe.
Yeah.
15 seconds over 35 minutes is not that much. It's really not that much. Now you would say maybe this course suits Remco more. The longer it is, the better. I can't remember how much he won PCS refusing to load for me. I can't remember his time gap last year in Glasgow on that punchy course, but that uphill really killed Tarling at the end.
12 seconds on Ghana, 48 on Tarling.
Yeah, so these are very, very small margins. So anything goes wrong, mechanical, or even just you're missing 0.001%.
Do you believe in the home advantage for Stefan Küng?
Not really.
Okay. I thought it would be like very patriotic here for a second, but I don't believe in it either.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like over 55 minutes, you need who has the more power should win. I know he maybe takes a few corners better than the other guys because he knows it, but yeah, I don't think it makes that big a difference. So I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna go with Tarling. Tarling, Remco, Ganna. I also think probably Ganna could win, but I'm just out on Ganna at the moment. I think Tarling in that Olympics would have gone really close, and I know these hills aren't so good for him, but I think it's Tarling time. I worry that one of Tarling or Ganna will have a mechanical again. I swear, one of those two always has a mech in a TT. So I also think Remco, can he carry the shape? Can he carry the shape he had? Sort of rushed Tour de France preparation, great shape there, straight into Olympics, flying. Is he able to carry that shape? I don't know if he's been at altitude. I think has he been at Synchrosphere, the simulated altitude in Alicante? I think he's definitely been training down there. I don't know if he's been doing simulated altitude down there where Van der Poel also trains. But yeah,
does he have like a place in Galpe?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know exactly where Remco's been sleeping.
Maybe
every
his
evening.
bedroom has simulated altitude.
Yeah, he
who knows?
probably can afford to make it his bedroom 2,500 meters altitude. So I'm going Tarling first, Remco second, Ganna third. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really exciting. And I also think someone like McNulty may also surprise.
I'm going for Remco, Tarling, Kung.
Okay, you think Ganna's... You can have a shocker. Or Kung overperforms.
Well, both is possible.
Yeah.
I won't place my finger on it yet. Or mechanical, who knows?
Yeah, a Tobias Foss style win at 200 to 1. I don't see with the three big guns. The difference in level is just too big, and we're not in Australia anymore. I'm afraid. Onto the women's TT, 30 kilometers long. They start basically in Gossau, so they don't start in Zurich, and they go not straight into, but maybe 5 Ks of flat, and then they do go into that hill zone, the same hill zone in the men's. So the last 25 kilometers of this TT or 26 kilometers is identical to the men's, but they skip the flat start from Zurich, and straight into that hill zone. So actually, the women's TT is relatively harder than the men's TT. It has a higher proportion of climbing meters per kilometer than the men's because of that lack of flat start, which I think is important to note. And then, of course, they do have then the last 12, 13 kilometers is flat along the Seestrasse into Zurich.
Looking at the riders at the race, we got to talk about that. And I'm seeing Chloe Dygert on the start list. I'm seeing Grace Brown on the start list. Kopecky, Vollering, Van Dijk. We're looking at similar riders as the Olympics. But like you say, the amount of altitude meters on average per kilometer is higher than at the men's. We know that Chloe Dygert's technical skills haven't always been up to scratch, but I don't see that necessarily being a problem on this parkour, because if I look at the parkour, that's about as perfect as you can get for someone that might not be the top of the crop when it comes to technique. And when it comes to Grace Brown, she won the Olympics ITT. Dygert ended up getting third there after crashing. I kind of feel like, despite the fact that Kopecky destroyed people at the European Champs, I'm looking at Dygert versus Brown again.
Ooh, no, Kopecky looks real lean and in good shape. That was a decent European Champs TT. But then again, who did she beat? And then Brown put everyone on a minute 30 in the Olympics.
Is she going to risk it all, Kopecky, before the road race the week after?
That's again a good question. Like, I think yes. I mean, this is a really good course, I think, for Kopecky, Benji. She basically does 5Ks or 4Ks warm up flat, and then these short explosive hills where she does have the advantage on all of these other competitors, that hill zone in the middle of the race. And then she's got to take all her time there because she is way more explosive than Dygert, than Brown, certainly than Van Dijk. So I think it's as good a course as she could hope for. The market has Brown as the favorite, but the market is much tighter than the men's. Brown is at $2.10, Dygert $3. So they're neck and neck, like you said, Benji. Kopecky's third favorite at $5.50. Vollering fourth at $10, Van Dijk at $11, Henderson second in the Olympics, $23, Lebu $29 is the seventh favourite. So actually a much more competitive, at least race according to the market.
I think I agree with those top three odds. Sorry, who was first and second in the odds?
Brown is just over evens. She's $2.10, and then Dygert's $3, second favourite.
I think after the Olympics, that's a top three in betting odds I would be expecting.
Yeah, it makes sense. Anna Henderson maybe a little bit disrespected to be sixth favourite after coming second in the Olympics, but then Dygert crashed at least once, and she was less than a second behind Henderson on a flat course. Lebu was also close. You're looking at Kopecky, 156. Has she really improved her TT from 27th of July in 2 months to now?
Yeah.
Where she lost nearly 2 minutes to Brown on a 32-kilometer course. So it's basically the same. I would say this is the same length of time because this is Hillier. This is going to be a 40-minute TT, or maybe a 36, 37-minute TT. It's going to be very similar length with more hills. Has she really improved close to 2 minutes to Brown?
I think she has perhaps improved because I don't necessarily compare it directly to Brown, but towards the people she had beaten, you know? Who has she beaten at the European Champs? Ellen van Dijk? Well, it's difficult to really use her as the indicator because you'd expect her to be better at the European Champs than at the Olympics after recovering from her injuries for longer. But then, for example, Christina Schweinberger, at the Olympics, it's about a 20-second gap, maybe not even 15 seconds between Kopecky and Schweinberger. At the Europeans, it's a minute. So based on European performance, you put Kopecky roughly on podium candidacy at the Olympics. You know, if you look at that, which is still not beating Grace Brown for me, and not beating Chloe Dygert if she doesn't crash for me.
Last year, to remind you of Glasgow, 36.2 Ks, 47 minutes was the winner, and that winner was Chloe Dygert by a slender 6 seconds. 6 seconds over Grace Brown. Then the next best rider, Schweinberger, was a minute further back. So, yeah, like Vollering is fourth favourite, but to me, Vollering is as likely to win this TT as, Tobias Foss in the men's. You know, like I don't know why Vollering is on $10 odds. Maybe because she did destroy everybody in the Tour de France TT, and maybe she's going to make me eat my words, but Brown and Dygert have proved for a couple of years that they are the best. And maybe Kopecky is, with this course, which I repeat, the course is really good for Kopecky. It really is.
Yep.
For her explosiveness. But I'm going to go with Dygert. She just signed a contract extension with Canyon SRAM. She was good in Bretagne Classic or GP Plouay for the women. She was unlucky not to win. Bredevol kind of played her. So she's carried good shape. I know that was 3 weeks ago, but she's not gone on holiday or gone back to, more importantly, she's not gone back to the US and whatever. In the last month, she stayed in Europe, presumed training. So I'm going to go with Dygert by 10 seconds over Brown, and then Kopecky on 30 seconds.
I was going to do the same, so I'll switch up now. I'm going to go with Grace Brown by 10 seconds over Chloe Dygert, and the gap towards Kopecky I still believe will be like 30 seconds minimum.
I think, that's about right. Any do you reckon Lebu can sneak a medal?
Yeah, I don't see it. Right now, I just don't see it.
Yeah, she's just not got that power of the specialist. I would say we forgot to mention, and I think it is appropriate to mention, Marlon Royce will not be starting. She would have probably been one of the three favourites for this TT alongside Dygert and Brown. She's still suffering, I think, from long COVID symptoms. If I watched her Instagram story, she'll be at the race, sort of as an ambassador, or being an ambassador for the race, but very obviously disappointing for her. That's probably the only time in her life that there would be, during her peak of her career, that there will be a home world championships, and she would have taken a medal in the TT. So that really is a shame for her, and hope she can come back next year in top shape. And certainly she was a big loss for the team in the Tour de France this year. I think we can all agree with that. I'll just mention quickly the just because it is topical at the moment. What did you saw the under 23 news, Benji, that the UCI wants to prevent riders who are under 23 eligible from riding in under 23 international championships. That's the World Championships. That's the European Championships. If they have a pro contract.
So, looking at this, a pro contract, first of all, means not just Walter, but also pro team, right?
Yep, you could be Giulio Pellizzari on Bardiani.
Yeah, okay. So,
because they're a pro team. They're a pro team.
Let's dive into the reasoning for a second. The reasoning is because in the last couple of years, every single time there's a World Championships and a World Championship U23, there's always been this discussion of like, okay, this guy, for example, I think it was Fedorov who rode a elite championships before he rode a U23 one the week after or something. Was it last year? We check to be sure. I don't know if it was last year. Maybe it's 2022. Yes, 2022. He rode
Fedorov's actually good, by the way. I think he topped 15 Paris-Roubaix this year.
Fedorov in 2022 rode the men's ITT Elite, got 28th, and the week after he won the U23 road race, which I think that has sparked discussions. Every single year we've got these discussions. For example, this year, Del Toro ending up riding the U23 races, the U23 World Championships road race and ITT after he's won stage at Santos Down Under, etc.
Don't skip your boy. This discussion. No, it's not Del Toro. It's Alex Segard that's sparking this discussion. He won the Renewey Tour TT ahead of is a World Tour TT ahead of TT specialists, and then he went to Europeans.
Yes.
Well, he did and then he did the quickest time. He did a time that was quicker than the winner of Affini. His time was quicker than Affini. Okay, different weather conditions, but still, he would have medaled the men's elite, the Europeans.
Yes, that is correct. And I honestly, I disagree that he did that from a personal standpoint. I think he should have ridden the elite road race. But the 2 points here is camp number one is okay. The U23 should be a pool for talents that haven't made it yet to be seen to the world. And the other camp is saying U23 is just an age group. If you're under 23, which means if you're in the year, until you're in the year that you switch to being 23, you can join that category. It's just an age group. If you're under 23, you can ride those races. And the problem is, if you don't make it just an age group, then you're going to be putting an arbitrary line, for example, a pro contract on that rule, and then it becomes a bit, in my personal opinion.
Well, I think the pro teams, a fair few of them, not shooter, they're not a Devo team, but some of there's two categories of pro team, I would say. There is the pro team who starts, and then they have a 5-year plan to go world tour and become a top team. Shooter is in that camp. They are not there to be a place. Okay, yes, they want to develop probably some Swiss or German-speaking cyclists, but they want to be with the big boys. There's other teams like Flanders Baloise, or Euskaltel. I mean, Euskaltel is a great example. Euskaltel don't have, at least I believe, don't have grand ambitions to be on the podium of the Tour de France with an international team next year or in 5 years. They want to be a place for Basque cyclists, Polti Cometa for Italians, Flanders Baloise for Belgian riders, and you look at the age of Flanders Baloise, your man Benji Victor Vercouille, or however you say his name.
It's a deaf team, kinda.
A little bit. It's a place also for the guys who develop a bit later, of course, like Bonu, who's 25. Bonu. But yeah, there's not a rider over 30 years old on that team. And when I look at Polti, Polti, you've got Piganzoli, who's 22 or whatever. So yeah, the majority of the riders on these teams are not U23. Let's say Bardiani. They have a few under, but they're better riders. Pinarello, Pellizzari are under 23, and they should strongly resist this being introduced because, well, first of all, it's a competition. like, and I think the idea behind ban or preventing these pro contractor riders riding is that they are taking away opportunities from riders, and the purpose of the race is to provide opportunities for the world to see these riders who don't have a pro contract. That's what, to me, a Nations Cup race is for. A Nations Cup race in U23 is a race to show what you can do. This is an international competition. This is the World Championships of the under-23. This is not a participation medal egg and spoon race or a Nations Cup race. So I would say actually you should prevent the pro contracted riders, like say Brennan is on Visma World Tour next year, Benji.
Yeah.
Should he be allowed to go and win Nations Cup sprints?
No.
But I would say he should be allowed to do the World Championships U23 road race and win that.
Yeah. For me, it changed a few years ago. For me, if it was 10 years ago where the U23 was truly young talents and that was the pool that was being scouted, that's a very different era. We've crossed into the era where the juniors have become that pool, where before the juniors have become that pool. So the U23 is not. When riders enter U23 and they're super talented, they almost always already have a World Tour contract lined up. Yes, there's riders that develop later that we don't see at Tour de l'Avenir, etc., popping up, and then they get contracted by teams. But those riders will still be visible, even if those bigger U23 riders are present. So for me, the whole argument for the World Championships U23 to be purely restricted to riders that haven't made it yet died when the development age shifted, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's moved so quickly that almost like Mikkel Bjerg, for example, he won 3 under-23 World Championships time trials, which actually, that's another rule. Like, should you be able to stay in the discipline and keep winning them? That would never happen now. After the first one, he would have got the same contract he eventually got, probably.
Well,
after the first
just
year.
Did.
Well, yeah, Segard is trying. Yeah, Segard's won Europeans 3 times, but no. But Bjerg was on Hagen's. Yeah. He was on a development team still, and he stayed there, and that was only like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. This is not a long time ago. So it is changing so fast. I would say that I want to see the best riders in the category in the international events competing against each other. I also then, if Segard is say Jakob Söderqvist beats Segard in a TT in under 23, then I know Söderqvist is legit. But if he beats some guys on the Conti team, I'm like, okay, like, what does this mean? So I don't even think it's useful for the intended purpose of helping get a contract. Maybe it is because people just say, oh, he won, so he must be good. But yeah.
But I do have the question then. I don't like seeing the specifics of like, okay, if one rider rides an elite championships, he shouldn't be able to ride a U23 one.
I agree with that.
So there should be some rule, but it shouldn't be based on a pro contract. It should be based on...
pro contracts are not all equal.
Yeah, and also World Tour races are not all equal. For example, if you send the guy to Romandy, that's not the same as if he rode a Grand Tour already. If you rode a Grand Tour already, I don't want to see you riding the U23 World Championships.
Yeah, Del Toro, it is a little bit strange. Like, yeah, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis where, like, Segard hasn't broken through. Del Toro's won. Oh, I mean, Segard actually has one World Tour race, so maybe he's in the same category, to be honest. But
should there be a classification? Should it be based on race classification of, like, Monument plus Grand Tour? If you rode that, then you can't do U23 World. Then it becomes a bit arbitrary as well, eh?
I just think you just don't allow. If you've done it like what Tarling did, I think is I respect Tarling for it. He just immediately was like, I can medal with the big boys. I'd rather do that, and he stuck with that. Like, yeah, what would it if Tarling could have cleaned U23 champs by 2 minutes every year? Like, but it's like whatever. I think you shouldn't be able to do an elite international event for your country and then go back to U23s. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. But yeah, preventing a Flanders Baloise 20-year-old who no one's ever heard of from riding an international event when he's on a rolling 1-year deal because it's technically a pro contract, that just means that Flanders Boel is going to find it even harder to get these guys because they can't go there if they want to do international events. And also, what if there's riders in the U23 Devo guys that have a World Tour contract for next year signed? Does that count? What if they have a World Tour contract in the future already, but they're on a Devo team because they're already sorted, and I know there's guys like that in the U23s.
Yeah, for sure.
So then it hasn't even been announced yet. Do they just keep it quiet?
It's clear that the UCI didn't think this through at all, which happens a lot.
Yeah, but anyway, for that TT World Championships, Stegart's the short favorite. Del Toro is actually second favorite. It's hard to see anyone. Beating Segert, I must say. But just look out for those Trek Devo guys, Soderquist and Behrens on this sort of course. But I think it's a bit long for Soderquist, actually. He's the better of the two. He won the prologue in Baby Giro, but that was indeed a prologue. But yeah, that was, I think, an interesting discussion to have, and the topic keeps coming up, and it will keep coming up because Azure Desert just brought 4 juniors or 4 guys who are teenagers into the World Tour team next year. Yep. They announced yesterday, or 2 days ago, Saichash straight from juniors, Bizio, Chamberlain, and Isidore, all first-year U23s. Crazy stuff. Like, of course, I understand that they had to bring Saichash to the world team to stop probably someone poaching him. But yeah, like, it's almost going too far. Like, Chamberlain, big talent. Bizio, big talent. They can do another year of U23s. The results suggest that, but same with Morgan. Anyway, I'll let you get out of here, Benji. I got to also check out of the room, so I got to move. But yeah, thanks for listening as always. Go check out the Lanterne Rouge plan that we created on Join Cycling, and we'll see you with the TT recaps on Sunday afternoon. Until then, ciao.